it's a fairly controversial and complex issue. So, James, you want to kick it off? Even if you don't want to, would you kick it off?
Yeah, now that the anticipation is boiled up here, let me share my screen. So we have a presentation. There's a lot of things to talk about, and so we put together a presentation. We want to walk through it and focus on a couple of key things. First off, we want to walk through the design. We've heard recently at city council meetings that there were some questions and some confusion about the design. We want to walk through it and kind of try to lay that out clearly. And then we will, towards the end of the conversation, talk about what grant funding this project has and what the costs of the project are expected to be. So we'll try to lay it out like that. I think big picture, one point we just want to make clearly is that, this is overall, it's a good thing. We've been able to leverage a lot of grant funding to make improvements to Ojai Avenue and Maricopa. Obviously, there's controversy and questions about the actual design, which I think we can walk through and talk about. But I think big picture, once we nail those things down, it's a good thing for the community, and it's an opportunity that it's a once in a generation opportunity to do a project this major for a city our size with the funding challenges we have to be able to do something like this. So with that, we'll just kind of walk through quickly. We have some new renderings, and we want to show those just to give people a feel for what it'll look like. And I'll try to keep the presentation brief, and then we can always go back and look as we go. But this rendering is color coded, and it shows the major parts and components of the project with some renderings as well. So you'll notice, obviously, the hot topic here is the orange striping here shows where the proposed lane reduction with parking separated bike lanes will be added. The pink striping that's shown throughout is sidewalk infill to help pedestrian traffic. And I walk that area frequently and know that sidewalk infill would be a big benefit for us. The yellow here is bike lanes along Ojai Avenue. And then the last part here, the purplish, is class 2 bike lanes with trees. And so we have some renderings that we'll show right now, but just big picture and scope. When we say ATP, which people have been hearing for 5 years now, this project has been moving. This is what we're talking about, is Maricopa Highway all the way through Ojai Avenue. And the improvements that we are looking to, or that we're proposing, are as follows. Might as well get the big one out of the way first. This is what's proposed currently for Maricopa Highway. Just to explain it to someone who's never seen this before, somebody's watching, is there'd be driving lanes on each side, one driving lane, followed by a parking lane that would have landscaping potentially, either trees or landscaping, and we'll show you what those could look like as well, with parked vehicles as well to provide a buffer for the bike lanes. And you'll notice that's on both sides of the street. And so, obviously that's a pretty major change from the 4-lane highway that is currently there. So we're expecting that will be a big topic of conversation. This is what it currently looks like. One reason, talking to the people that have worked on this project for a few years now, is one of the reasons why this is proposed is that people turning onto the highway in various areas, it's a challenge to turn when there's 2 cars coming and you can't see around them. We talked about the left turn from Creek Road onto the 33, how they have a similar issue turning across 2 lanes, and everybody knows that's a area that most Ojai Valley residents would like to see modified, and I think Caltrans had proposed some modifications there as well. So what it could look like, as part of our discussion today, is this is the 1 lane in each direction with landscaping, and the next slide shows what it would look like with trees, but it's landscaping and parked vehicles here. I think my little arrow is showing up. and then bike lanes on the other side of the landscaping and the parked vehicles. And we've had, one of the basic questions we get asked is why there would need to be a lane reduction. Basically, it boils down to if we want parked vehicles and a bike lane, that's why the lane reduction was proposed. So that would be part of the discussion of alternative options. Just showing version 2 here with trees instead of landscaping. So this image shows kind of a low-hanging branch here. We'd obviously try to keep that from happening. Next section of Maricopa is near the hospital, across from the hospital. This is what it looks like existing. And what it would look like with this project is it would be bike lanes, two-way bike lanes are proposed in this area. No parking is proposed at this portion as it narrows a little bit, and the two-lane bike lanes are proposed instead. So so those are the designs for Maricopa. We'll come back. I want to try to just kind of lay out the whole vision before we get into this in depth. But we also then have Ojai Avenue east of the Y. Here's what it currently looks like, and here's what's proposed, relatively simple bike lanes. So not as major, obviously, as the Maricopa changes, but it proposes these bike lanes at the Y. Vaughn's, if you can see my arrow, Vaughn's is about where my arrow is here, and this is the let me go back. The large file. Okay, and then this area here is where the Weingarten Memorial is. Weinberger Memorial, sorry. And so this would add bike lanes in those areas and would make that a lot more bikeable than it currently is. That anybody who's been on a bike in this area and has gone through the Vaughn's parking lot and curb cuts knows that this is a challenge. Next big section is Ojai Avenue. And this shows a rendering of the bike lanes being added on either side of Ojai Avenue. It's a 5-foot bike lane. And then one of the components of this project is it'll add landscaping in certain areas that'll provide shade for people walking. And so looking at what it looks like currently, and this is what it would look like as proposed with these bike lanes and striping added to Ojai Avenue. Similarly, Ojai Avenue at Rincon, the bike lanes added here. And then throughout Ojai Avenue in sections, and we'll look at some of those sections in depth when we talk about cost. The part Ojai Avenue includes some parts of our sidewalk infill throughout certain portions of the project. So as proposed, we have some sections that are decomposed granite and some sections that are actual sidewalks. So another section on Ojai Avenue that would have some of those DG sidewalks added. So again, the before and after the sidewalk and the bike lanes. And then this one is I think a big one that, we don't talk about very often, but Ojai Avenue from Kenyatta to Blanche, this portion of the street right now, anybody who walks that and sees the cars coming at them knows that it can be scary. And so this would add several sections of curb extension that would give the pedestrian some more delineation and protection. So this is what it looks like currently. Again, the vehicles coming down, sometimes you can't tell which way they're going to turn. And what it could look like with those curb extensions added and some landscaping would be a lot more, a lot more pedestrian friendly is the goal. We've developed a couple of alternate options. Some have some show the trees and some show more of the landscaping or rock medians in different areas. So that is the difference between this version and this version. And then one of the areas that we wanted to make sure to lay out, because obviously it's, the trademark of Ojai is the arcade block. This is what it currently looks like. We would add some curb extensions are proposed under the project, which would make it look more like this. And obviously these curb extensions are intended to kind of slow down traffic a little bit and get people, allow the pedestrians to stand here and be more visible. And we included this picture, we just thought it was interesting. This is the arcade block 100 years ago. And we noted that there were trees then, so this would be a little bit of a return to form. Not as many horses nowadays. Ojai Avenue east of downtown. Here's what it looks like currently. As proposed, it would add bike lanes and striping. And that would be added down, I believe it's all the way to Gridley. Similarly, just from another perspective here. And so these are all the updated renderings, and some of those were existing, but these are the renderings, and we'll get to the next section. I did want to say, I guess I said that it would slow down traffic, the curb extensions, and my notes are that it will actually, it's intended to shorten the wait time for cars. I'm sorry. So those are the renderings, and we can go back to those, but just a couple of more points we wanted to show. We have this rendering that shows the areas of throughout the valley that are 2 lanes currently versus 4 lanes. The red is the 4-lane section. The yellow is the 2-lane section. So you can see the Maricopa Highway, and there's very little red. So from the traffic engineering perspective, the thought is that the section that is 4 lanes currently is so minor in the scheme of things that the reduction to 2 lanes doesn't make as much of an impact as far as adding to vehicle travel time as one may expect. But we know that that is a hot topic, and one that people that drive it every day will feel differently. Also, we just wanted to include, we've presented this prior, but the traffic volume for the parts of the project. I think everybody's aware Ojai Avenue is the heart of Ojai as far as traffic goes, and the average traffic count is shown here, and it's far higher here than it is anywhere else in the valley. This section of Ojai Avenue, there's average daily trips of 22,500 with a peak of 2,200 per hour. And in this section, it's 18,500 with a peak of almost 2,000. Maricopa is about half of that currently. So, and then we've been seeing, I think we've all seen this graphic a lot because it's come up with various projects, and a lot of cities refer to this now as people start talking about the reduced speed limits, increasing pedestrian safety. The statistic that is important to remember is that at traveling at 20 miles per hour, 9 out of 10 pedestrians would survive an accident. And when you double that speed to 40, only 1 out of 10 pedestrians would survive that accident. And so that's an important part of traffic engineering. I'll run through these. There's a couple slides here on costs, and we'll run through these, and then we can go back and look more closely. But we included this in the staff report. There is currently, including the demonstration project, which is the first phase, and it's somewhat separate, although it is part of the project. It's kind of a standalone as well. So including the demonstration project and the construction grant, we have approximately $3.233 million available for this project in grant funding. Obviously, the demonstration project is expected to take up that whole amount. We also noted that there's right-of-way procurement and design work. So what will be left for construction will be $2.3 million. And then as we noted in the report, we wanted to make sure we included all costs over the last 5 years. And currently the city has spent $130,000 on the project. Also, one of the things we'll talk about as we go through this project is that we have identified some other grant opportunities. Obviously, they're not guaranteed. We would have to apply for them and try to seek them, but there may be other grant opportunities available if we choose to pursue those. And this is kind of the bulk of, I think, the report. And so I'll try to go through it kind of high level, and then we can get more into it. But we tried to lay out Maricopa Highway and Ojai Avenue to show what is being proposed on each and what the costs of those components are. Maricopa Highway would be is currently projected to take up about $1 million of the grant funding. That $1 million, the biggest chunk is the 4 pedestrian crossing improvement curb extensions. There's also costs associated with the lane reduction striping, adding the class 4 bike lanes, including the landscaping, which is a large portion. The sidewalk infill at Ben Franklin's is approximately $65,000. Bike trail modifications at the Y are actually a lower chunk than I thought. They're only about $100,000. And then there's some Nordhoff High School improvements, although the parking lot modifications and improvements we've discussed recently would be an additional cost that hasn't yet been included in the budget for this project. So the Maricopa Highway improvements total $1 million. And we went through parts that could be removed, such as if the lane reduction were to be removed, that would reduce about $347,000 from the project. And there's additional items that could be removed, such as landscaping and irrigation. And then the Ojai Avenue part of the project is about $2 million, and the bulk of that goes to the 13 pedestrian crossing improvements, which is almost $1 million on its own, with the next biggest chunk being sidewalk infill at about $780,000, and then the remainder going to bike lanes and striping and tree infill. And we wanted to provide some information. The 13 pedestrian crossing improvements that total almost $1 million. We've actually made some improvements to some of these crosswalks recently, such as the Kenyatta Street crosswalk. We added, and our RFB stands for the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which basically means those flashing lights at the crosswalk. So we've added those at Kenyatta Street. We've added those at Blanche. So as part of this project, we had already done that through separate funding, but as part of the project, we still would add curb extensions to those crosswalks, and then curb extensions to Ventura Street and the Arcade Center. Add the the beacons on Arcade East and the curb extensions, and then as you can kind of follow along there, that there's the additional crosswalks and whether we are adding beacons to them or just curb extensions to them. They're listed there. So last slide, and then we can go back as needed. But the last slide is the schedule for the project. The design phase is expected to be complete by the end of the year. We are, with this report, we are at 60% designed, and we would come back in coming months with the, I believe it's the 90%. We also expect to launch the Maricopa Highway Lane Reduction Demonstration Project in either July or August. Obviously, that one has been challenging because we were trying to launch it when there's school and football, and the coronavirus pandemic has made that difficult, if not impossible at this point. So it's projected to start in July or August. Caltrans final design approval is expected in December. We can make modifications to it still. I know that's been a question a lot, as we can modify that as we proceed with our demonstration project. And then finally, construction would be expected to start in the summer or fall of 2021 and be completed in about a year. So those are the basics. Again, we wanted to start by just refreshing everybody's memory and providing some updated renderings of what this project could actually look like. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, James.